The Indomitable came through the void like a god stepping into the mortal world. Reality screamed as the ship forced itself back into normal space, dragging with it energies that should not exist in this dimension. The very fabric of space rippled outward from its position, creating waves that washed over the Crithian fleet like a stone thrown into still water. The human ship was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Its hull was a dark gray that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, covered in patterns that looked almost organic, like veins running beneath skin. The shape was wrong somehow. Angles that did not quite make sense to eyes evolved in three-dimensional space. When the Crithians looked at it, their brains struggled to process what they were seeing. Some ships reported different sizes, different configurations, as if the Indomitable existed in multiple states simultaneously. Admiral Thexral gripped the arms of his command chair hard enough to crack the metal. "What is that?" he demanded. "Identify that vessel immediately." Vex frantically searched the database, running the ship's profile through every known classification system in Crithian military intelligence. Nothing matched. Not even close. "Admiral, there is no record of any species possessing this technology. The energy signature alone is beyond anything in our database. That ship is generating more power than our entire fleet combined." "That is impossible," Thexral growled. "Nothing can generate that much power. Your sensors must be malfunctioning." "All sensors confirm, sir. Multiple redundant systems." "This is not an error." The Crithian fleet hung in space, 200 warships surrounding a single vessel that had appeared in the center of their formation. For a long moment, nothing happened. The silence stretched, becoming unbearable. Then Admiral Thexral activated the general communication channel. "Unknown vessel, you have entered Crithian space without authorization. Identify yourself immediately or be destroyed." The response was silence. The Indomitable hung there, seemingly inactive, like a predator waiting for prey to make the first move. Inside the human ship, Captain Hyunwoo stood on the bridge watching the Crithian fleet on his displays. His face remained calm, but those who knew him well could see the cold anger burning behind his eyes. "Ensign Taeyang, open a channel," Hyunwoo said quietly. The young communications officer nodded, his hands shaking slightly as he activated the transmission array. This was his first major deployment, and he had never imagined his first real combat situation would be against an entire fleet. The channel opened. Hyunwoo spoke, and his voice carried across every frequency to every ship, reaching even the damaged computers on the dying Velen world below. "You have committed acts of genocide against a species that asked only for peace. The Velens offered you friendship and you answered with fire. Humanity does not forget. Humanity does not forgive." Thexral's eyes narrowed. "Humanity? There is no record of any species called humanity." "You are lying. Surrender now and you will be granted a quick death." "We have been watching you," Hyunwoo continued as if the Admiral had not spoken. "We have seen your conquest, witnessed your cruelties. We have documented every crime, every massacre, every act of violence you have inflicted on innocent species. We waited, hoping you would change, hoping you would find a better path. You have proven that hope was misplaced." The Crithian Admiral laughed, a harsh sound like rocks grinding together. "One ship against 200? You are either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. I suspect the latter." He gestured to his weapons officer. "All ships open fire. Destroy that vessel. Leave nothing but atoms." The Crithian fleet opened fire as one. 200 warships unleashing their arsenals simultaneously created a light show that could be seen from planets away. Plasma torpedoes, particle beams, railgun slugs moving at relativistic speeds, all converging on a single point in space where the Indomitable hung. Pilot Sung-ho watched from his fighter's cockpit, waiting in the Indomitable's launch bay with his squadron. He was young, confident, some said too confident, but he was the best pilot humanity had ever trained. His fingers drummed against his controls as he waited for the order to launch. Come on, he muttered. "Let us show them what we can do." The weapon struck. The explosion was bright enough to temporarily blind unprotected optical sensors. Energy readings spiked off the scale. When the light faded, the Crithians expected to see nothing but debris. The Indomitable was gone. For a moment, the Crithians thought they had won. Then the sensors detected it again, now positioned 5 kilometers away from where it had been. It had not moved. It had simply stopped existing in one location and started existing in another, without traveling the space between. "Phase shift detected," Vex reported, his voice rising in panic. "Sir, that ship just moved through dimensional space. It phased out of our reality and back in at a different location." "That is impossible," Thexrel said, but his voice lacked conviction now. Lieutenant Jiwan smiled from her weapons station aboard the Indomitable. She had cold eyes, the kind of eyes that did not blink when pulling a trigger. Her fingers moved across her controls with practiced precision. "Captain, permission to return fire?" "Granted," Hyunwoo said quietly. "Show them what humanity has learned." Jiwan pressed a single button. The Indomitable fired. The weapon that emerged from the human ship was not a beam or a projectile. It was something else, something that made reality itself recoil. The Crithians later tried to describe it to their superiors, but words failed them. It looked like a tear in space, a wound in the universe that bled darkness. It moved slowly, almost gently across the distance to the nearest Crithian warship. When it touched the hull, the ship simply stopped existing. Not exploded, not destroyed. It ceased to be, erased from reality at a molecular level. One moment there was a massive warship with a crew of 5,000. The next moment there was nothing. Not even debris. Just empty space where a ship had been. What was that? Thexrel screamed. What did they do? Before anyone could answer, the Indomitable fired again. And again. Each shot was perfectly aimed, perfectly timed. Ships vanished from existence, erased like mistakes on a drawing. The Crithians tried to return fire, but the human ship phased away from every attack, appearing in new positions, always moving, never where the Crithians expected. "Launch fighters," Hyunwoo ordered. The launch bays opened and Sung-Ho's squadron shot out into space. There were only 12 fighters, small craft that looked fragile compared to the massive warships around them. But they moved like nothing the Crithians had ever seen. They accelerated to speeds that should have turned their pilots into paste, pulled maneuvers that violated every known law of inertia and momentum. Sung-Ho laughed as he wove between Crithian ships, his fighters' weapons leaving trails of destruction. "Is this the best the great Crithian Empire can do? I have trained against harder opponents in simulation." Commander Daeho coordinated the defense from his tactical station, his hands moving across displays showing the entire battlefield. He had spent 40 years studying warfare, understanding strategy and tactics at levels few could match. Now he put that knowledge to use, turning the Crithian formation against itself. When they fired at the Indomitable and missed, their weapons struck their own ships. When they maneuvered to intercept, they crashed into each other. "Their formations are breaking down," Daeho reported. "They are panicking. Discipline is collapsing." "Good," Hyunwoo said. "Let them understand fear. Let them understand what their victims felt." Dr. Yuna monitored the battle from medical bay, preparing for casualties even though she knew the Indomitable's defenses made it nearly invulnerable. She was a healer, not a warrior. But she understood that sometimes violence was necessary to stop greater violence. Still, watching ships die, watching lives end, made her heart heavy. 10 minutes after the battle began, half the Crithian fleet was gone. The survivors were in full retreat, their formations shattered, their confidence destroyed. They had come expecting an easy victory, and instead found themselves facing extinction. Admiral Thexrel stared at his screens in disbelief. His hands shook. His voice cracked when he spoke. "Fall back. All ships fall back to the rally point. Send a message to the homeworld. Maximum priority. Tell them we have encountered something beyond our understanding. Tell them to send everything. Everything." As the Crithian fleet fled, the Indomitable hung in space among the debris of its enemies. Inside, Hyunwoo took no pleasure in the victory. He had hoped it would not come to this. He had hoped the Crithians would listen, would understand. But some lessons could only be taught through force. "Ensign Taeyang, transmit our message to all species in range," Hyunwoo ordered. "Let the galaxy know humanity is here. Let them know we are watching. And let them know we will not allow genocide to go unpunished." The message broadcast across the stars, and the galaxy trembled. Over the following days, the asteroid field became a gathering place instead of a battlefield. The Bloodfang completed its repairs with help from dozens of volunteer ships. Engineers from multiple species worked side by side. They shared techniques and technology. They learned from each other. The mood was hopeful, almost festive. The recording of the confrontation had spread across galactic networks like wildfire. Every corner of civilized space had seen it. Public opinion, always a powerful force in galactic politics, had turned sharply against the peacekeeping armada's heavy-handed approach. Debates raged in the Galactic Council chambers on distant worlds. Should Death World species be allowed full participation in galactic civilization? Were the current quarantine laws based on real safety concerns or just prejudice? And most importantly, what did it say about the galaxy that ordinary citizens had to stand against their own peacekeepers to prevent injustice? The questions would take years to answer fully, but the conversation had finally begun. Captain Dae-hyun stood in the observation deck of the Indomitable. He watched through the large windows as repair crews moved between ships. Human engineers worked alongside Vorak technicians. Other species he barely recognized helped carry supplies and materials. It was beautiful in its way. "Unity born from necessity, Captain," a voice said behind him. He turned to see Lieutenant Hana entering the observation deck. "The Bloodfang reports all major repairs are complete. Captain Rena says they are ready to depart within the hour." Dae-hyun nodded slowly. He had known this moment was coming. The alliance had been forged in fire, tested by impossible odds, and had somehow survived. But now both ships had to return home. They had to face the consequences of their actions. "Tell Captain Rena I will meet her in the main docking bay in 30 minutes, he said. Hana saluted and left. Dae-hyun stayed a moment longer, looking at the stars beyond the asteroids. Earth was out there, dozens of light years away. What would they say when the Indomitable returned? He had started an interstellar incident. He had formed an alliance without authorization. He had risked war with multiple alien powers, but he had also saved lives. He had stood up for what was right, and he had proven that Deathworlders could be more than the galaxy's fear made them. That had to count for something. 30 minutes later, the main docking bay was filled with both crews. Humans and Vorak stood together, many having formed friendships over the past days. Chief Engineer Hyunwoo and Engineer Kara stood side by side, still discussing technical specifications even at the farewell. Dr. Soo-jin had exchanged medical data with the Vorak medical staff, discovering treatments that would benefit both species. Captain Rena entered the bay. The crowd parted respectfully. She walked with the confident grace of a warrior who had survived impossible battles. When she reached Dae-hyun, she extended her hand. "This is not goodbye," Rena said firmly. "It is merely the beginning. Our peoples will meet again, and when they do, they will do so as allies forged in the fires of adversity." Dae-hyun clasped her hand firmly. The grip was strong, but there was warmth in it too. "Respect between equals, to allies," he agreed. "And to the day when the galaxy judges species not by the worlds they came from, but by the choices they make among the stars." "The Vorak have a saying," Rena added. Her amber eyes gleamed with emotion. "The strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire. I believe humans have a similar expression." "We do." Dae-hyun smiled. "Adversity introduces us to ourselves. We both learned who we are these past days, and we learned we are stronger together." Rena released his hand and stepped back. She raised her voice so the entire bay could hear. "Crew of the Indomitable, you have the thanks of the Vorak people. You came when no one else would. You stood when others ran. You fought when the odds were impossible. This debt can never be fully repaid, but it will never be forgotten." The human crew erupted in cheers. The Vorak crew joined them, their deeper voices creating a harmony that echoed through the bay. As the Bloodfang prepared to depart, the two crews exchanged final farewells. Promises were made to stay in contact. Plans were discussed for future cooperation, seeds of friendship that would grow into something larger. Finally, the massive Vorak warship disengaged from the Indomitable. Its engines, now fully repaired, burned bright blue as it maneuvered out of the asteroid field. The Indomitable's crew watched from observation decks and view screens as their allies disappeared into the vast darkness of space. "Set course for Earth," Dae-hyun ordered once they were alone. "Maximum safe speed." The Indomitable turned toward home. As they left the asteroid field behind, Dae-hyun sat in his command chair and opened his personal log. He needed to record everything while it was still fresh in his mind. Earth Command would want detailed reports. There would be investigations, debriefings, probably disciplinary hearings, but none of that mattered as much as what had been accomplished. He spoke into the recorder, his voice steady and clear. "Captain's log, final entry for Deep Space Patrol Mission 7. We responded to a distress call in the disputed fringe. We encountered another Death World species, the Vorak of Corvin 3. We were attacked by forces representing 3 major galactic powers. We defended ourselves and our allies. We faced down the Galactic Peacekeeping Armada, and we survived. He paused, gathering his thoughts. I do not know what consequences await us on Earth. I do not know if my actions will be praised or condemned. But I know this. We did the right thing. We stood for justice when it would have been easier to look away. We extended our hand in friendship when fear would have made us enemies, and we proved that Deathworld species deserve their place among the stars. Another pause. This one longer. The galaxy tried to define us by our origins. They wanted to imprison us in categories built from their fear. But today, 2 Deathworld species showed they could not be so easily contained. We showed them that we are more than survivors. We are protectors. We are allies. We are the future. He closed the log and leaned back in his chair. Around him, the bridge crew worked quietly and efficiently. They had been through hell together. They had faced death and emerged stronger. Whatever came next, they would face it as they had faced everything else. Together. Captain. Minji spoke up from her station. I am receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. They want to speak with you immediately. Here it comes, Daehyun thought. Time to face the music. Put it through to my ready room, he said. Hana, you have the bridge. He stood and walked to the small office adjacent to the bridge. The door closed behind him, giving him privacy. He sat at his desk and activated the communication terminal. The image that appeared was Admiral Park, commander of Earth's Deep Space Fleet. The Admiral's expression was unreadable. Captain Daehyun, I have been reading your preliminary reports, and I have been watching the galactic news networks. Sir, I can explain. The Admiral held up a hand. No explanation needed, Captain. Your actions speak for themselves. You responded to a distress call. You defended an allied vessel. You stood up to galactic injustice. And you did it all while making humanity look like the reasonable party. Daehyun blinked in surprise. Sir, did you think we would be angry? The Admiral's stern expression cracked slightly, showing the hint of a smile. Captain, you just made first contact with another Deathworld species and turned them into our closest ally. You exposed the bigotry in the galactic power structure. You rallied civilian ships from 30 different species to support our cause. You made the peacekeeping armada back down without firing a shot. Do you have any idea how valuable that is? I had not thought of it that way, sir, Daehyun admitted. Of course you had not. You were too busy trying to do the right thing. The Admiral's smile grew wider. Well, Captain, your right thing just changed the political landscape of the entire galaxy. The Galactic Council is in chaos. Half the members are demanding reforms. The other half are scrambling to cover their tracks. And humanity is sitting pretty in the middle, looking like heroes. What about the alliance with the Vorak? Daehyun asked. I made promises on behalf of Earth without authorization. Your promises have been officially ratified as of 3 hours ago, the Admiral said. The Vorak government contacted us immediately. Their leaders want to establish formal relations, trade agreements, cultural exchanges, military cooperation. Captain, you just gave Earth its first real ally in space, one that understands what we have gone through because they have gone through it themselves. Daehyun felt relief wash over him. He had been prepared for court-martial, not congratulations. There is one more thing, the Admiral continued. The Vorak are not the only Deathworld species out there. Preliminary surveys have identified at least 7 other worlds with similar classifications. 7 potential allies who have been too afraid to reach for the stars because of how the galaxy treats beings like us. Your actions have given them hope. They are watching now. And some are taking their first steps into space. The implications hit Daehyun like a physical force. Not just 2 Deathworld species, but potentially 9 or more. An alliance of worlds that understood strength and survival. A bloc that could stand together against prejudice and fear. The galaxy is changing, Captain, the Admiral said softly. And you helped change it. Come home. There is much work to be done. The Crithian core fleet arrived exactly 73 hours after Admiral Thexral's desperate transmission. They came in perfect formation. Over 2,000 warships arranged in battle groups that had conquered 100 worlds. At their center was the Devastator, flagship of the Crithian Armada, a ship so massive it had its own gravity field. Its weapons could level continents. Its armor had never been breached in 300 years of service. Admiral Thexral stood on the bridge of his new command ship, having barely escaped his previous flagship. He watched the human ships on his displays with cold hatred, 13 vessels against 2,000. The humans would learn that their tricks would not save them when facing the full might of the Krithian Empire. All ships, attack formation Delta 9, he commanded. Surround them. Cut off all escape routes. I want overwhelming firepower on each human ship. We will crush them like the insects they are. The Krithian fleet moved to execute the order, spreading out to envelop the human battle group. It was a standard tactic, one that had never failed. Surround the enemy. Remove options. Apply superior numbers until the enemy breaks. On the bridge of her flagship, Admiral Hana watched the Krithian formation with interest. She had fought against difficult odds before, but never against numbers like this. Still, she had spent 2 centuries preparing for this moment. Humanity had not been idle during their long hiding. They had learned. They had innovated. They had become something the galaxy had never seen. All ships implement Formation Nexus, Hana ordered calmly. Show them what we have been building. The 13 human ships moved in perfect synchronization, taking positions that formed a 3-dimensional geometric pattern. Energy began flowing between them, visible pulses of power that connected each ship to all the others. The pattern created was beautiful and terrifying, a web of energy that pulsed with barely contained force. What are they doing? Thexrel demanded, watching the display in confusion. Energy readings are increasing exponentially, Vex reported. Sir, each human ship is somehow drawing power from all the others. The combined energy output is... It cannot be right. My instruments must be malfunctioning. What do your instruments say? Thexrel growled. They say that combined energy grid is generating more power than our entire fleet and the star system itself combined, sir. The Krithian fleet opened fire. 2,000 ships unleashing their weapons created a storm of destruction that lit up the darkness of space like a new sun. Enough firepower to sterilize worlds, to crack moons, to boil oceans. All of it focused on 13 human ships. The weapons struck the human formation and simply stopped. The energy web between the ships absorbed everything, channeling it, redirecting it, turning it back on itself. The harder the Krithians fired, the stronger the human defensive grid became, feeding on the enemy's own power. Impossible. Thexral breathed. They are using our weapons against us. Captain Hyunwoo watched from the Indomitable as the battle began. This was Admiral Hana's show now. She was the strategist, the commander who saw the entire battlefield as a chessboard, where every move was calculated 100 steps ahead, but each ship still had its role to play. Sung-ho, launch your squadron, Hyunwoo ordered. Target their command ships. Pilot Sung-ho grinned from his fighter's cockpit. He had been waiting for this. Finally. Come on, everyone. Let us show them how humanity fights. His squadron of 12 fighters launched from the Indomitable, joined by fighters from every ship in the human battle group. Over 100 small craft shot into the chaos of battle, moving so fast they appeared as streaks of light. They wove between Krithian ships, their weapons precise and devastating. Each shot found its target, destroying command centers and weapon systems with surgical precision. The Krithians tried to intercept them, but it was like trying to swat flies with hammers. The human fighters were too fast, too agile, moving in ways that should have been impossible. They pulled maneuvers that generated hundreds of times normal gravity, yet somehow their pilots survived, protected by technology that manipulated inertia itself. Commander Daeho coordinated the defense from his station aboard the Indomitable. He had spent 40 years studying warfare, understanding not just tactics but psychology. He knew how soldiers thought, how formations moved, where weaknesses appeared under pressure. Now he used that knowledge to turn the Krithian numbers against them. Target groups Alpha through Epsilon, he ordered. Make them think we are focusing our attack there. When they reinforced those positions, hit their flanks from Delta Squadron. It worked perfectly. The Krithians predictably moved to defend the areas under attack, exposing their sides. Human weapons struck from unexpected angles, and Krithian ships began dying in earnest. But it was not all one-sided. The sheer number of Krithian ships meant that some of their weapons got through. One of the smaller human vessels took a direct hit from a plasma torpedo, its shields momentarily overwhelmed. Damage reports flooded in. Dr. Yuna was ready. Medical teams transported from ship to ship using quantum teleportation technology, arriving instantly wherever they were needed. She supervised the evacuation of the damaged ship, ensuring no one was left behind even as explosions tore through the hull. Captain Hyunwoo, we have casualties, she reported. 15 injured, 3 critical. The ship will survive, but it needs to withdraw from the battle. Pull them back, Hyunwoo ordered. Have the Resilience cover their retreat. Engineer Minji worked frantically in the Indomitable's engine room, monitoring power flows and making constant adjustments. The reactor was running at 130% capacity, far beyond safe limits. Warning lights flashed red across every display, but she coaxed more power from the system, channeling it to weapons and shields with the skill of someone who understood the ship better than anyone alive. "Come on, baby," she whispered to the reactor. "Just a little more. We can do this." Meanwhile, Marine Commander Young-soo led boarding operations aboard Krithian vessels. His teams used teleportation technology to appear directly inside enemy ships, bypassing all external defenses. They moved through corridors with practiced efficiency, stunning Krithian crew members with non-lethal weapons Dr. Yuna had developed. The neural disruptors worked perfectly. Krithians dropped unconscious without injury, their brain patterns temporarily disrupted by specific frequencies. It was merciful, far more merciful than the Krithians themselves had ever been with their enemies. Young-soo's team took control of 3 Krithian battleships within the first hour, turning their weapons against the rest of the fleet. The confusion this caused was devastating. The Krithians could not understand how ships under their command suddenly turned hostile. But the most effective weapon humanity deployed was not technology. It was information. Minho, an elite operative specializing in infiltration, had teleported aboard the Devastator itself. He moved through the massive flagship like a ghost, invisible to sensors, silent as death. His target was the main computer core. When he reached it, he plugged in a device no larger than his thumb. The device uploaded everything. Every atrocity the Krithian Empire had committed in 3,000 years. Every massacre, every genocide, every war crime. Footage, documents, recordings of orders given and executed. All of it compiled and organized by human intelligence over 2 centuries of observation. Then Minho broadcast it across every frequency, to every ship, to every world within range. He made sure every Krithian soldier, every Krithian civilian, every species in the galaxy could see exactly what the Empire had done in their name. The effect was immediate and profound. On the Devastator, crew members stopped what they were doing to watch the broadcasts. They saw things their government had hidden from them. They saw the truth of what their empire had become. Some wept. Others became angry, not at the humans, but at their own leadership. 3 Krithian captains, horrified by what they saw, immediately withdrew their ships from the battle. They sent messages to Admiral Hana, offering to defect to provide intelligence to help end the war. "Accept their surrender," Hana ordered. "We are not here to destroy the Krithian people. We are here to destroy the Krithian Empire's ability to commit genocide." Admiral Thexerl watched his fleet crumble around him. In 3 hours of battle, he had lost over 600 ships. The humans had lost 1. The mathematics of war, which had always favored the Krithians, had betrayed them. Numbers meant nothing against such overwhelming technological superiority. "We cannot win this," his tactical officer said quietly. "Admiral, we must withdraw." "No," Thexerl said through gritted teeth. "We are Krithians. We do not retreat. We do not surrender. We fight until victory or death." But the decision was taken from him. Captain Hyunwoo appeared on the Devastator's main screen, his face calm but his eyes hard as steel. "Admiral Thexerl, your fleet is broken. Your empire's crimes have been exposed to the galaxy. You have lost. Stand down now and no more of your people need to die." Thexerl's hand moved to the self-destruct control. If he could not win, he would take as many humans with him as possible. But before he could activate it, Minho appeared behind him, placing a hand on his shoulder. The Krithian admiral collapsed, unconscious from the neural disruptor. "Bridge secured," Minho reported calmly. "Admiral Thexerl is in custody." The Krithian emperor stood in the ancient chamber beneath his palace, staring at the weapon that had been buried for 10,000 years. It was not Krithian technology. It was something older, left behind by the precursor race that had seeded the galaxy with life. The Empire's founders had discovered it during their expansion, had studied it, had been terrified by it. They had sealed it away with orders that it should never be used unless the Empire itself faced extinction. That time had come. The Emperor was old, over 400 years. His scales faded and cracked with age. He had ruled for 2 centuries, presiding over the Empire's greatest expansion. Now he would preside over its end. If the Crithian Empire could not rule the galaxy, then no one would. He placed his hand on the activation panel, feeling the ancient metal warm to his touch. If we cannot win, then everyone loses, he whispered and pressed the button. Aboard the Indomitable, analyst Kyung-Soo watched in horror as the energy readings from Crithia Prime spiked off the scale. Captain, the weapon is active. I am analyzing its function based on the energy patterns. His fingers flew across his displays, running calculations. Oh no. Oh no no no. Report, Captain Hyunwoo ordered, his voice steady despite the fear he felt. It is a space-time destabilization device, Kyung-Soo said, his voice shaking. When it reaches full power in 2 hours, it will create a cascade reaction that will collapse normal space across 12 star systems. Everything in those systems will be destroyed. Not just ships and planets, but space itself will cease to exist. The death toll will be in the trillions. The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The Crithian Emperor had chosen mutual destruction over surrender. He would kill his own people, his own worlds, everything, just to take humanity down with him. Admiral Hana appeared on the display, her face grave. We need to evacuate everyone we can. All human ships will begin immediate rescue operations. We can save millions, maybe billions if we work fast enough. It will not be enough, Commander Daeho said quietly. There are too many people, too little time. The battle group needs to stay here and evacuate civilians, but someone needs to stop that weapon. Everyone on the bridge knew what he was saying. Someone needed to go to Crithia Prime. Someone needed to stop the weapon at its source, and there was not enough time for the entire fleet to reach the homeworld before the weapon activated. The Indomitable can make it in time, Captain Hyunwoo said. If we push the void drive to maximum, we can jump directly to Crithia Prime's orbit. Captain, that kind of jump will drain all our power reserves, Engineer Minji protested. We would arrive with minimal shields and weapons. Against the homeworld's defenses, we would not last long. Then we will have to work fast, Hyunwoo said. He turned to Admiral Hana. Admiral, take command of the evacuation. Save as many as you can. We will handle the weapon. Hana looked at him for a long moment. She had known Hyunwoo for 20 years, had served with him on a dozen missions. She knew what he was really saying. This was a one-way trip. The Indomitable would not be coming back. It has been an honor serving with you, Captain, she said quietly. The honor was mine, Admiral, Hyunwoo replied. He closed the channel and turned to his crew. I am not ordering anyone to come with me. This is a volunteer mission. Anyone who wants to evacuate to another ship has 5 minutes to do so. No one moved. Not a single person left their station. Lieutenant Jiwon spoke first. With respect, Captain, where else would we go? You need someone who can shoot straight. And you need someone to keep this ship running. Engineer Minji added with a tired smile. Someone has to patch you up when you get hurt, Dr. Yuna said. One by one, every crew member voiced their commitment to stay. They knew the odds. They knew they were probably going to die. But they also knew that staying behind meant abandoning trillions of innocent people to death. That was not something any of them could live with. Very well, Hyunwoo said, his voice thick with emotion. Then let us save the galaxy one more time. Engineer Minji, prepare the void drive for emergency jump. Navigation, plot a course directly to Crithia Prime's orbit. Weapons, prepare all remaining ordnance. Medical, prepare for heavy casualties. The Indomitable's engines began to hum, building power for one final jump. Around them, the human battle group watched in silence as their sister ship prepared to make its sacrifice. Admiral Hana transmitted a message to every ship, every crew member. What the Indomitable is about to do will be remembered for as long as humanity exists. They are going into certain death to save people who hours ago were their enemies. This is what humanity stands for. This is what makes us who we are. We protect those who cannot protect themselves, even at the cost of our own lives. Watch and remember. Space tore open and the Indomitable vanished, jumping across light years in an instant. The ship emerged in orbit around Crithia Prime, appearing directly above the capital city. The homeworld's defense systems immediately opened fire, thousands of weapons tracking the human ship. Shields at 20%, Lieutenant Jiwon reported as the ship shuddered under the assault. We will not last long. We do not need long, Hyunwoo said. Just long enough. Target the weapon's location. Fire everything we have. The Indomitable unleashed its remaining weapons at the planet below. The shots struck the Palace District, boring through kilometers of rock to reach the ancient chamber where the Emperor stood beside the doomsday weapon. The explosions shook the planet, but the weapon's shields held. "It is not working," Ji-won said in frustration. "The weapon has its own defensive systems. Our weapons cannot penetrate them." Minho's voice came over the comm from engineering, where he had been helping Minji with repairs. "Captain, there is another way. If we can get someone close enough to the weapon, they can manually override its systems, but it would require teleporting to the surface, getting through the palace defenses and reaching the chamber." "That is a suicide mission," Commander Daeho said. "Even if you succeeded in stopping the weapon, there would be no time to teleport back before our ship is destroyed." "Then it is a good thing I have always wanted to be a hero," Minho said lightly. "Captain, give me permission to attempt it." Before Hyunwoo could respond, several other voices spoke up. Young-soo from the Marine Barracks, Sung-ho from his fighter, even Ensign Tae-young from communications. They all volunteered, all willing to make the sacrifice. "No," Hyunwoo said firmly. "This is my decision to make. This is my ship, my crew, my responsibility." "Captain, with respect, you are needed here," Minho argued. "I am already trained for infiltration. I know the palace layout from our earlier intelligence gathering. I have the best chance of success." Hyunwoo wanted to argue, but he knew Minho was right. As captain, his place was on the bridge, making the decisions that would give them the best chance of success. But it tore at him to send someone to certain death. "Go," he said finally. "And Minho? Thank you." "Just doing my job, sir," Minho replied. "Tell my family I love them." Minho teleported directly into the palace, materializing in a corridor filled with Krithian guards. He moved through them like water, his neural disruptor stunning them before they could raise an alarm. He fought his way deeper into the complex, following the energy signatures to the ancient chamber. Above, the Indomitable continued to take devastating damage. Shields were gone. Hull breaches appeared across multiple decks. Engineer Minji rerouted power from life support to keep weapons operational, knowing they were running out of time. "Captain, I am picking up a transmission from the surface," Ensign Tae-yang said. "It is the Krithian Emperor." The Emperor's face appeared on screen. He looked old and tired and completely insane. "You cannot stop this, human. The weapon is unstoppable. We will all die together, as we should have from the beginning." "You are killing your own people," Hyunwoo said. "Billions of Krithians will die. How can you justify that?" "Better dead than slaves to another empire," the Emperor spat. "Better extinction than dishonor." "We did not come to enslave anyone," Hyunwoo replied. "We came to stop genocide. There is still time to end this peacefully. Shut down the weapon. Let your people live." "Never," the Emperor said, and cut the transmission. Minho reached the chamber to find the Emperor standing beside the weapon, which pulsed with terrible energy. The countdown showed 20 minutes until full activation. The Krithian Emperor turned to face him, holding an energy weapon. "You are too late," the Emperor said. "The weapon cannot be stopped now. Even if you kill me, it will complete its cycle." "Then I guess I will have to do this the hard way," Minho replied. He rushed forward, dodging the Emperor's shots, moving with superhuman speed enhanced by his suit systems. He reached the weapon's control panel and began working, his fingers flying across ancient controls. "What are you doing?" the Emperor demanded. "Changing the target parameters," Minho said calmly. "This weapon is designed to collapse space-time across multiple systems. But what if I change it to only affect the space immediately around the weapon itself? It would create a localized collapse, a void bubble that would contain the explosion and phase it into another dimension. That would still destroy everything within 50 kilometers, the Emperor said. You would die. I would die. Everyone in the capital would die." The message reached 47 different species within 6 hours. Some received it through official channels, government broadcasts that interrupted regular programming with urgent news bulletins. Others heard it whispered through underground networks, resistance cells that had been fighting Krithian occupation for years. And some simply saw it in the sky, watching as the Krithian fleet fled in disarray from a single human ship. On the mining world of Talax 4, a species called the Brevan stopped their forced labor to watch the broadcast. They were small, barely 4 feet tall, with blue skin and large eyes adapted for low light. The Krithians had enslaved them 2 decades ago, working them to death in deep mines extracting rare metals. When the Brevan miners saw the human ship on their screens, saw the Krithian fleet running in fear, Something sparked in their hearts that had been dead for years. Hope. On the oceanic world of Pelagos, the drift singers received the message through hydrophones that translated it into their musical language. They had heard the Crithian threats before, promises that resistance meant extinction. But now they heard a different promise, one that said they did not have to face the darkness alone. On Crithia Prime, the Crithian homeworld, the High Council convened an emergency session. The chamber was vast, built to intimidate, with walls covered in carvings celebrating 3,000 years of conquest. But today the councilors were not celebrating. They watched the recordings from Admiral Thextral's fleet over and over, trying to understand what they were seeing. "How many ships did we lose?" Councilor Rektar demanded. 112 vessels destroyed, the military liaison reported. Another 38 damaged beyond repair. Total casualties estimated at 900,000 personnel. "Against one ship," another councilor said quietly. "One ship did this." "We must mobilize the core fleets," Rektar declared. "Send everything we have. Show these humans that the Crithian Empire does not fear anyone." The order went out. From orbital shipyards and military bases across Crithian territory, warships began to move. They converged on the Perseus Arm, over 2,000 vessels representing the full military might of an empire that had never known defeat. It was the largest fleet mobilization in Crithian history. Aboard the Indomitable, analyst Kyung-Soo sat in the intelligence center, surrounded by holographic displays showing data streams from across the galaxy. He was thin, almost fragile-looking, with tired eyes that had read too many reports about too many atrocities. His specialty was signals intelligence, intercepting and decrypting communications from species that thought their messages were secure. "Captain, you need to see this," Kyung-Soo said, his voice tight. "The Crithians are mobilizing everything. Over 2,000 ships are moving toward our position." Hyunwoo stood behind him reading the reports. "How long do we have?" 3 days at their maximum speed. 4 if they maintain formation discipline. "Not enough time to evacuate the survivors," Commander Daeho observed. "There are still 12,000 Velans alive on the surface, hiding in shelters and underground bunkers." "Then we stay and protect them," Hyunwoo said simply. "Captain, we cannot fight 2,000 ships alone," Daeho protested. "Even with our advantages, the numbers are overwhelming." "We will not be alone," Hyunwoo said. He turned to Ambassador Ji-won, who had been standing quietly in the corner of the bridge. She was a diplomat, trained in negotiation and cultural understanding, but she had also served in the military before becoming an ambassador. She understood that sometimes the best diplomacy came from a position of strength. "Ambassador, it is time to make our offer," Hyunwoo said. Ji-won nodded and moved to the communication station. She took a deep breath, preparing herself for what came next. This was the moment everything changed. This was the moment humanity stepped fully into the light. "This is Ambassador Ji-won of humanity, broadcasting on all frequencies to all species within reception range," she began. "You have seen what we can do. You have seen the Crithian fleet flee in terror, but we did not come to conquer. We did not come to replace one empire with another. We came because we could no longer watch innocents die while we hid in the shadows." Her words reached millions of beings across dozens of worlds, in resistance cells and slave camps. In occupied cities and conquered colonies, people stopped what they were doing to listen. "Humanity has been watching the galaxy for 2 centuries, Ji-won continued. "We have seen the rise and fall of empires. We have witnessed acts of incredible kindness and unspeakable cruelty. We have remained hidden because we believed that every species must find its own path. But genocide is not a path. It is an ending, and we will not allow it to continue." She paused, letting her words sink in. "To those who suffer under tyranny, we say this: rise now. Fight for your freedom. Humanity stands with you. We will provide support, weapons, technology, anything you need to reclaim your worlds. To those who perpetuate tyranny, who believe that might makes right, who think the strong have the right to dominate the weak, we say this: your time ends today." The message ended, but its effects rippled across the galaxy like a wave. Within hours, uprisings began on 17 different worlds. The Brevans on Talax 4 rose up against their overseers, overwhelming them with sheer numbers and desperation. The drift singers of Pelagos attacked Crithian naval bases, their songs disrupting enemy communications and coordination. On a dozen other worlds, resistance movements that had been quietly gathering strength for years suddenly went active. The Crithian Empire, which had seemed invincible just days before, suddenly found itself fighting fires on multiple fronts. They had never faced coordinated resistance before. Species they had conquered generations ago, species they thought had been completely broken, suddenly remembered they could fight back. In the Indomitable's medical bay, Dr. Yuna examined the body of a captured Crithian soldier. She was fascinated by xenobiology, the study of alien life, and this was her first chance to examine a Crithian up close. What she found surprised her. "Captain, you need to see this," she called over the comm system. Hyunwoo arrived in medical bay a few minutes later. Yuna was standing over a holographic display showing the internal structure of Crithian neural pathways. "What did you find?" "The Crithians are formidable warriors, but they have a critical weakness," Yuna explained, highlighting certain areas of the display. "Their neural pathways are highly organized, which makes them efficient and disciplined. But that same organization makes them vulnerable to specific frequency disruptions. If we can generate the right signal, we could incapacitate them without killing them." "A non-lethal weapon," Hyunwoo said thoughtfully. "How long to develop it?" "Give me 2 days," Yuna said. "Maybe less if engineer Minji helps with the technical aspects." Down in engineering, Minji was already working around the clock to keep the Indomitable running at peak efficiency. The void drive required constant maintenance, and the weapon systems consumed power at rates that would have been impossible for any other species to generate. She was covered in grease and sweat, her hair tied back, her eyes focused on the reactor core that pulsed with barely contained energy. "The ship is holding together," she reported to Commander Daeho, "but if we have to fight 2,000 ships, I will need to push the reactor beyond safety limits. We could have a cascading failure. Can you prevent it?" Daeho asked. "I can try," Minji said with a tired smile, "but I cannot make any promises." Meanwhile, Kyung-soo made a discovery in the intercepted communications that changed everything. He burst onto the bridge, out of breath from running. "Captain, I found something. Something important." Hyunwoo turned from the tactical display. "What is it?" "I have been analyzing the encrypted Crithian military communications, trying to understand how they coordinate their forces," Kyung-soo explained rapidly. "And I found references to something called the origin protocols. It took me hours to decrypt them, but when I did..." He pulled up a holographic display showing ancient text and genetic markers. "Captain, the Crithians know about us. They have known for centuries." "Explain," Hyunwoo demanded. "According to the origin protocols, there was a precursor race that seeded the galaxy with life billions of years ago. They created genetic templates that would evolve into intelligent species. Most of the current galactic species, including the Crithians, evolved from one template. But humanity evolved from a different one, a template designed for adaptability and innovation rather than physical dominance." "We are related to them?" Lieutenant Ji-won asked in disbelief. "Distant cousins, you might say," Kyung-soo confirmed. "The Crithians discovered this information in ancient ruins centuries ago. They buried it, classified it at the highest levels because it contradicted their philosophy of natural superiority. They could not accept that they were genetically designed to be warriors while humans were designed to be innovators." Hyunwoo absorbed this information in silence. It explained so much. Why humanity had progressed so rapidly in technology, while remaining relatively weak physically. Why they could innovate solutions to problems that other species simply accepted as limitations. They were not better than other species. They were different, designed for a different purpose. "Does this change anything?" Commander Daeho asked.